My name is Professor Victor Cheng. I'm very honored to give a talk on behalf of my team. The title of the talk is called "The Towards Perceived Playfulness and Adoption of Hearables in Smart Cities of China." We have published this paper in Journal of Global Information System. So, I'm going to divide the talk as follows. First, with the research objective, then followed by hypothesis development, then with the data and methodology. We are going to discuss about results and also to conclude our paper. So first of all, with research objective, as we know that we should feel always very privileged that we don't have any forms of disabilities in our body. Of course, that for some people they may have certain abilities not being fully developed, or maybe that comes to the age that the abilities of hearing that goes down. That's a very typical thing as we grow to a certain age, or maybe sometimes we may have some genetic or some kind of issues with our own parts of our body, and there's no shame to use any facility to help us. So one of them is called hearables or hearing aids. So as the hearing aids have improved massively over a period of time, nowadays we are talking about the invisible types. Especially for this paper, we are talking more with the invisible in a kennel, or maybe just in a kennel. So as you see that they grow very small in size, very intelligent, highly portable. Whereas there are also some other people, they prefer to use the behind the ear hearing aid, because sometimes when it's too tiny, you may just get small pieces of hearing aid drop off. So the research objectives, they are threefold. So first, we try to investigate and to identify whether the smart technologies help middle-aged and elderly people to accept the hearing devices in smart city in China. Then we adopt the PLS-SEM framework to analyze the factors which affect behavioral intention towards adopting hearing aids. As PLS-SEM is a well-known framework, then we apply that further. The third point is that we explore whether a smartization brings new mediating factors into the decision-making of adopting hearing aids. And then with hypothesis development, because for every research we do, we should have the hypothesis. So this is a PLS-SEM framework analyzing in a smart city. As you can see on the right-hand side, there are three hypotheses, and each of them will have the corresponding 5 to 6. Normally, sometimes you may have 4, sometimes you may have 6, or even a little bit more with 7. And then in order to have the hypothesis, we then identify what are the factors or what are the elements towards the research. So in this case, we have identified perceived playfulness as the important one, and perceived usefulness as another, and then perceived ease of use. So the meaning of perceived is for the person who adopts using hearing aids, so that they will see whether is that useful and how it can be having the impact to their life, and is it convenient to use, and then they will have major influences for intention to adopt, because factors for adoption can be dependent on people. For some people, it can be more, some people it can be less, that we cannot miss anything. Therefore, we should have those three hypotheses. The first one is the PU, which stands for perceived usefulness, has a positive relationship with the intention to adopt a hearing aid device in smart cities. And hypothesis 2, POU, stands for perceived ease of use, has a positive relationship with the intention to adopt hearing aids in smart cities. Hypothesis 3, PP, that stands for perceived playfulness, has a positive effect on the intention to adopt hearing aids. So hearing aids, what makes you to use them or to adopt them based on these three factors. So data and methodology will be follow PLS-SEM framework to analyze the factors which affect behavioral intention towards adopting hearing aids in smart city. Because first of all, PLS-SEM has been used in information system research and they have been very effective. So it allows different researchers to use it very effectively in different circumstances. And then of course, we need to know what the factors, because the factors that it determines certain outcomes are also important. For instance, what factors for people to apply for certain jobs, or what factors for people to move to certain parts of the country, or even some other places, or what factors that affects us in our decision making. So in this way, behavioral intention means that sometimes we do not know what the reasons are, but then based on people's behavior or based on people's decision, then we try to find out what the factors. So in this way, we then can find more into detail. So when we break down further, that's very important when we do research. Then we have to understand what are the reasons behind. So first of all, we used a very integrated approach, because that there's not only one solution. There can be several reasons or several ways for us to conduct research. So one of ways exploratory interview, because sometimes we have to talk to the people who adopt hearing aids, what the reasons are, and then you understand what the issues and problems they have, and identify variables and adopt a conceptual model, because we should have a conceptual model to get everything all together and to explain the factors behind the scene. And of course, we can also collect the data and then use quantitative analysis. As I've said, that data collection and cleaning is also important, because we have to get a very high quality of data and then clean out any incomplete data, and so that we can use exploratory data analysis, because at the beginning we do not know a subject enough. Then usually we use exploratory data analysis, and then we can test a common method bias, because there can be certain techniques can be more towards to certain ways of analysis, and we should never be biased to anything. But however, we need to find out any biases towards the data or towards analysis, or even sometimes towards the interpretation. And we have a measurement model assessment to ensure that everything is independent and we get the best possible outcomes. And structural model assessment, just to see that whether they are structurally consistent and whether they can have missed anything. And of course, we have to end up everything with hypothesis testing to validate whether our hypotheses are valid at the end. And then in order to do this, what we do is that you have a 5-point Likert scale, then followed by EFA, exploratory factor analysis, as I've just explained very briefly, and then with a human single factor test, because sometimes we have to just focus on one and to see whether it's valid. And then we use PLS-SEM analysis to sum up, and then use PLS-SEM with a PU, PP, PEOU, perceived usefulness, perceived playfulness, and perceived ease of use, so that we then can make a conclusion whether the overview of adoption of hearables in smart cities. Because when we always want to conduct research, this is a very useful structured way to help us to follow step by step, and then we do not miss anything, and then we come up with the final outcomes that is based on a very structured way of doing analysis and understand all the factors and everything all being involved. So data collection, first of all, we use the exploratory interview and the questionnaire to understand what are the requirements, and we refine the questionnaire process, and then we ended up with 187 responses, because we have to know that this is not easy subject, and not everybody that use hearing aids. And then you have to also understand that certain cultures, they do not want to share this kind of information, because they may feel that this is a little bit more personal to do with their life. And also that some people, they are not interested to be approached, although they can talk about the subject, but when it comes to research, they are not willing to share further. So it is not an easy thing. So sometimes when we do information system research, we can be very biased to the number of the participants, but sometimes you have to realize that it's not always challenging to get enough enough responses. So in this way, all participants are required to have at least 40 years old. So in a way that we want to limit certain factors, it's not because of the genetic, but because when it comes to certain age, and due to various reasons, for some people, they got this issue because of the work environment, which are not very noisy. And so we have to limit 40 years and above, and to have the age-related hearing loss. And missing values were removed from the data set to ensure the better quality. And 175 samples remain in the data analysis. So the reason is that we want to ensure that all the data has been fully completed and will be able for us to do a very independent and unbiased research. So the main reason for the relatively smaller sample, as I've explained, is harder to find the people, and also they have suffered from the hearing loss, and it is also likely to be explained by the social norms, which people don't like the other people to know about, the reason why they have this issue. And a 5-point Likert scale survey. That's important because we can design it, and then we can use the online survey in Sojam. Of course, you can also use other systems. So social demographic variable include gender, age, annual income, working environment, and education. So then we also have a good knowledge about our participants. Then we ask the participants to rank what extent they agree with the items with the PU, POU, and PP. And then we can understand better about their views on this. So with the exploratory factor analysis, EFA, so first of all, we obtain an understanding of the demographic features of the participants. Then we understand the distribution of the constructs and the correlation of the construct. And through the EFA test, the constructs with the factor loading less than 0.5 will be removed from the analysis. So to ensure that we have a good quality, then we use Harman single factor test analysis. The reason is that we want to make sure the data analysis results based on it are not affected by common method bias. So it has to be independent, and we want to ensure that at the very beginning we do things correctly. And then with the analysis method as follows, the PLS-SEM, as we have mentioned, and I also showed a diagram earlier. So the model is assessed by evaluating its reliability using the Cron-Best alpha and composite reliability CR. So Cron-Best alpha has been very commonly used in information system research, and normally a good result should get 0.7 above, and composite reliability to ensure that we get the reliability test too. So validity using average variance extracted, or AVE, and the Fennell-Lacker criterion, and also the heterotrait or monotrait, or in short called HTMT ratio. So we use other type of tests because when we perform analysis, we have to conduct a number of tests to see that whether all the results are fair and also in support of the hypothesis. The structural model is assessed through the multi-collinearity assessment, model fit, and the predictive relevance of the model. So we can then check them whether they all fit to that. So we have done a very vigorous test against all different well-known models or statistical tests. So hypothesis testing is to investigate the relationship between the intention to adopt a hearing aid and its and also with also any relations, and to test with the 3 hypotheses to identify the single factor. So we then test each factor very thoroughly, and then when we then test all the 3, when we test all the 3, and then how they contribute to the final intention to adopt hearing aid. So the results are as follows. So we have collected all the results. So 12 samples with the missing values were removed. So we got 175 samples left. So what we get was that we got 74.9% of respondents are under 60 years old. So 55.4% of the respondents have more than 30,000 RMB annual income, because the research was done in China. Therefore, the RMB was the currency. So this is the demographic of 175, and you can see there's male was slightly more, and this is the age distribution. You may understand that that problem may become serious because of the certain work environment and because of the noise that people have. So our hearing ability then began to decrease over the period of time. And then we also asked about the education level and the income level. There's also partly why some people might not be able to provide the kind of information, but then we do not ask detail. We only ask about the range. And also the ethical approval process was done in China. And that's why we also have to ensure that all the research we do is always ethical and is always contributing to the society. And environment also is an important factor, just to see whether when the issues with the hearing, is it because of the environment? For some people they do, some people it's not, due to various reasons as well. And then we then can see that for EFA and CMB, exploratory factor analysis and common method bias test. So as we know, these are the factors PU, POU, PP. So each of the factors loading have a score of greater than 0.5, and the total variance of the three factors structure with the extracted factors is 58.117%, or slightly under 60%. That's fair enough, but if we have more sample size, then will always help us. But as you can see, for some of the measurement, you get 0.78. So it means that some of the hypotheses would be good. In general, when it affects this, because certain part of the PU may not get a positive outcome, so therefore you may have impact on the final outcome. So we can then see perceived playfulness seems to be slightly better, but then when it comes towards the end, the last few may have lower results. But then for details, please refer to our paper, because our paper will describe what they are in details. For presentation, we only present the most important thing. And as you can see that the POU, in this case, that we also have a better average outcomes. So in a way that we can say, yes, it seems to work all right for most of people, whereas some people may have certain issues on certain part of hypothesis. It may come to various reasons because of personal preferences. So we analyze further. Yeah, it's too early to come to a conclusion. Therefore, we then understand would there be any issues or any area we might have missed. So the number of factors was restricted to 1. So we only look at 1 at a time. If the factor total variance is not greater than 50%, then the CMB does not have affect the finding. So the factor total variance is 39.31%, demonstrating the analysis result in our study are free from CMB. So that we are not biased for certain things, but then of course that we may also understand, in some countries or in some type of circumstances, one particular factor may be very dominant. It's always important for us to know. And also the measurement model assessment analysis. So measurement model analysis, in this case, we focus on reliability because we have to ensure that the results are reliable and they are always resilient. So we then use Cronbach alpha and also composite reliability to then have a joint view on the reliability. As we can see that all of them will be above 0.7, but even better still, if you are above 0.8, it means that you have a very high level of reliability. So then it shows that we have a good Cronbach alpha value, but also composite reliability is always above 0.6. But better still, we go above 0.8. So in terms of reliability, we don't have that problem. But then with validity, the values of the AVE are all greater than 0.5, which demonstrate the convergent validity of the model, and every value square root is higher for every variable than other correlation among the variables, and all the variables are less than 0.9, confirming the discriminant validity established in the model. So of course that certain things we cannot prevent it, and therefore we'll try our best to analyze the results. And in this way, we then go on further on the structural model assessment and hypothesis testing, because it's very important to test whether hypotheses they are valid or not. So VIF, that stands for variance inflation factor values. If it's under 5, they indicate the model is free from collinearity problems. So we want to ensure that and our results are not affected by any other problem like this. So VIF, values of all the measurement items are less than 3, confirms that the model does not have a collinearity issue. So perceived ease of use, perceived playfulness, and perceived playfulness together all explain they have only 36.1%. As you can see here, the R-squared value, and NFI is less than 0.9. In this case, if we get a 0.725, SRMR is less than 0.1. In fact, we get 0.095, and Q square is greater than 0. We get 0.323. So in general, what the result means is the goodness of fit of the model and the predictive variance of model means that it follows the linear regression well in this case, and also the predictive relevance. I mean, if we follow our trends, then we can then analyze and predict the likely outcomes to some extent. And you have to also realize that in social science or information systems, R-squared value may not be necessarily high, and normally an indicative value of 0.2 and above. However, usually we also know that the higher the better, but then we also have to understand different people have different perception, different opinion. They can vary totally, very differently. So in general, the outcomes are satisfactory. Then the hypothesis testing outcome. So as we can see that there are 3 things we have to test: perceived ease of use, playfulness, and usefulness towards intention to adopt. So then we test them and their impact. So that we get a coefficient beta and a p-value. So the coefficient beta, we got the following value. So the report showed that the pu minus 0.159 and the pp 0.691 significantly influenced the uptake of the use of hearing aids at a 10% and a 5% level. And then when it comes to 10% level, the factor will then become positive. And then perceived playfulness plays a more critical role in consumer behavior and tension with technological development. So what does it mean? It means that people use it just for technological advancement, because now they can see that it is providing them a great help. And so that because now a lot of hearing aids are becoming lighter, portable, and with more functions, they can even do more than what the hearing aid used to be. It's very similar to our mobile phone. We don't even call mobile phone, we call smartphone, because we can do a lot of things on our phones now. Use that as internet and pay for items, and also use it as our identity card. And similarly, there is also a very similar behavior. Though hearing aids adoption was not considerably affected by PEOU. So in our research, the perceived ease of use is not the main factor. Doesn't seem to be very considerably affected. So it means that the PEOU does not produce significant effects on people's intention to adopt the hearing devices. That means that it's not because it's convenient and people use it. It was because it then provide more function, and that is something they really need to improve their own hearing ability. That's the main reason for them to use. So the discussion. So first, hearing aid device are still often associated with the elderly population. So in this case, hearing aid devices are still very useful for that. So elderly population now they begin to have more adoption power for this. So at least they know that's useful for them. Then perceived playfulness is assigned to playfulness is assigned a high degree of attention by people when they intend to adopt and to use the hearing aid device. The perceived ease of use does not significantly influence a consumer's behavior intention for adopting a hearing aids, and the social economic variable does not influence consumers' decision on whether to adopt hearing aids. So these are the useful points for us to discuss. And the conclusion is that the research explore the intrinsic and extrinsic factor that could affect the behavioral intention of the adults aged 40 and above for adopting hearing aid devices. And it was also based in the smart cities in China. So intrinsic and extrinsic factor is that intrinsic is something that comes inside. They don't have to be influenced by anybody. It's something that you feel you have to do it. And extrinsic is that a lot of people are beginning to do it because of the other external factors that make them to adopt. So we then focus on those with age 40 and above in China. Then is employed the PLS-SEM analysis to examine the factors affecting the individual behavioral intentions in smart cities. And PUPP had a significant impact on consumers' behavioral intention to adopt a hearing aid device. The people intend to adopt a hearing aid device when they believe that it was enjoyable to use hearables. So we also want to know these are the reasons, and those people are really using them from the bottom of the heart. And the perceived effort to use was not significantly linked with individuals' decisions to use a hearing aids device and to reduce the better barriers of the hearing aids adoption. So these are our conclusion. And then the next point is that why should you sign a paper? Because that it's also always important. We spend a lot of time and effort to ensure that we produce a high quality output, but also it's crucial for us to gain your support. So if you can, while we made this paper for free, you can sell a paper. So the study was set to contribute to literature by the 3 points. So we demonstrate how the individual behavioral intention for hearable adoption change in smart cities. So we contribute partly to aging population research, because now we realize that, especially in developed world, the aging population is an emergent issue. More and more people that live longer, and then because when you live longer, there are always new problems arise, because there can be a shortage of healthcare services, and then you need more equipment and more facility to adopt for that and to facilitate this. So hearables or hearing aids has been used, especially in smart cities, so that they can do more things. And also now the functions of all the hearing aids have been much more than ever. So we then can expand the understanding of how the smart technologies improve people's quality of life with hearing loss by providing playfulness and reducing stigmatization. So that's a very important point for us to know how the smart technology improve our quality of life, because when our life expectations grows, and we probably have more demands. And of course, those technologies can help us to have a better quality of life, and how they can improve us and influence us in that way. So analysis with the PLS-SEM model, which is used to measure the influence of intrinsic and extrinsic constructs on consumers' behavior intention. Because first of all, we need to use a PLS-SEM so that they can effectively use them and to improve our analysis to a very high quality. As we have explained that we do not miss anything, and we have conducted various tests just to ensure that it's reliable and also provides very insightful outcomes. But at the same time, we need to know intrinsic and extrinsic factors. What makes people to adopt or decide on certain things? So there can be reasons due to yourself or because of the environment or people around you. So then it's also a very important thing, because we can also apply this knowledge in other domains. And if you can, please visit our paper. We will kindly appreciate it. We will be very grateful if you can sign our paper. If you find this paper is useful, relevant, and also inspiring to you. Thank you so much for your time to listen. We wish you all the best. Thank you and bye.